Uh, Hello everyone. Welcome to the day 3 of Unbox Summit 2020, presented by the Amdocs Innovation Team. Little about myself. I am Debottam Basu. I'm from the Data and Intelligence Unit in Amdocs. I'm also an ETL developer in my team and a machine learning enthusiast. And I'll be your host for today's opening day. We might have all heard about NFTs, but what this is all craze about and why is there an emerging trend among the creators and businesses? Before I start the exact reason behind this trend, I would like to talk about smart contracts, which are programs stored on blockchains and run on when certain conditions are met. With these NFTs, royalties can be programmed into smart contracts. So every time an NFT is sold, a percentage of the sale is sent to the original creator as royalty. This indeed is a groundbreaking concept which helps us get away from an inauthentic items because of its immutable and verifiable nature. In the recent times, you might have observed many companies have started incorporating metaverse in their long-term plans. The speed at which metaverse has been expanding is truly impressive and making headlines globally. This buzz as like it was started by Facebook when it announced its plan of moving into the metaverse world. Companies like Meta and Nike are rebranding themselves and investing a lot on this shared digital space. Many global companies are investing in billions to develop NFTs for the metaverse. Although it's a relatively new idea that has sprung up into existence, however, it has potential to open up better opportunities globally. Today, in this session, we are talking about the demystifying user needs and trends. We will have the Q&A at the end of the keynote session. Uh, Today with us for the keynote session, we have Mr. Anshul Rustaggi. Sorry, my bad. So, Anshul Rustaggi is the founder of Totality Corporation and zionverse, a definite polymath with the insight into the future, metaverse, Web3, gaming, NFTs, and a lot more. He completed his education from top IITs and IIMs, after which he shifted his path in building for the future. The immense amount of knowledge and experience Anshul has is clearly visible in the clarity with which he speaks so passionately about Metaverse and 3.0. So, yeah, Anshul, on to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate the introduction, Debottam. Hi, everyone. Let me quickly share my screen as well so that we could just go through this. I hope my screen is visible. Perfect. Okay. So I think as Debottam was mentioning, my background, I am from IIT Delhi, went to IIM Bangalore, spent the next decade in the hedge fund industry in London, then came back to India, took a break, did law full time from Delhi University, started businesses in vaping and hemp initially before I founded Totality in 2017. And I think that just, my experience in the past helps me give a different perspective to what is happening today. And I would love to share that point of view. So I think first a little quickly on what is the evolution of Web been so far and how have we landed towards Web 3. So Web 1, really started in the mid 90s, lasted till around 2003, 2004. This is really the era of dial-up internet, mostly websites, emails, mostly content being consumed on a read-only basis. So there were only few people who were able to create content because content creation was definitely a lot more technical, spinning off your websites to make sure that you're part of, the web. The web at this time was actually peer-to-peer. So in that manner, it was definitely decentralized. Because it was actually people, launching their websites, and there were very few centralized services that we saw at this point of time. We then evolved to Web 2, which is really 2004, to 2021, according to me. This is really the era that we saw of mobile apps in particular, where you could actually read and write at the same time. So like you do with your Facebook post or Instagram post, that you can like it, you can comment, you can share, and almost everything happens on a real-time basis. This is where centralization really came into play, because the amount of data transfer required was so large that for economies of scale and to have manageable cost, you really needed to make it centralized, right? So this centralization wasn't a grand villainous plan that it looks so now, where a lot of these companies are selling our privacy and our data to earn money through advertising, but it was really need of the hour to execute it in a more pragmatic as well as a low cost manner, right? And now Web3, obviously we are coming into an area where we are going back to the decentralization, and to actually make sure that that sticks, the ownership of everything we do is being given back to the community and to the users, and that has been enabled through the blockchain itself. So this is probably, for me, the most important sort of slide or takeaway from this particular session, which is, to me, the Web3 is actually a combination of three main things. It's immersion, its ownership, and its integrated economics. And I'll touch on all three of these one by one to actually give my point of view of what is happening and what trends have already been in place, because of which Web3 and the metaverse have become so popular, and why companies like Facebook believe or that this is the future, and hence they have even rebranded plus changed their vision to Meta. So on the immersion side, see, we had already seen a evolution happening, as an example, in social networks, right? So we had Facebook initially, which was very much text-based. We then saw Instagram coming out with pictures, more immersive, more content to consume in a picture. Then platforms like TikTok came, which were more video-based platforms. Immersion is increasing. And now already the future of social networks for Gen Z is in gaming, right? So whether that's PUBG, Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite, that's where Gen Zs are actually spending majority of their time, rather than these other social networks, right? If we see the same sort of immersion and gamification, we are seeing this aspect of gamification in every industry, right? Whether that's education, whether that's even payments, right? So Google Pay is a great example. They were the ones who first brought like sort of scratch cards and levels and badges and made it really, really popular for their platform. So as you are doing UPI payments, etc., you are getting different scratch cards. Scratch cards give you uncertain sort of rewards. There is this feeling of a lottery effect that, what if you scratch and you get suddenly thousands of rupees, which they have given for certain UPI transactions, and your level and badges go up, right? Even though you're getting these levels and badges for making UPI payments, it feels like it's something that you want, because there is an innate need to progress with every human, right? So your natural instinct is that, oh, my level is going up. Even if that level is for making UPI payments, you want that level to just be higher, right? The relevance of that level is less important than the fact that your level is going up, right? So that competence, that progress becomes very innate and important to us. So this immersion gamification trend has been around for the last decade. And now what we are really seeing is, with the growth of gaming and all, we are really seeing every business getting the pressure from the consumer to actually add these elements of fun and involvement in everything that people do, right? And the obviously the best and the end point of this immersion is really that, can we actually have sort of virtual reality where whatever we are doing in real world itself, we are able to do on these digital platforms, right? This is where metaverse is actually coming in the picture. The history of metaverse is that it was actually a concept, and even the term that was proposed in a book called Snow Crash, which I will call the Bible of the metaverse and Web3 in general. That book also proposed cryptocurrencies and virtual reality. It was written in the mid-90s. So for people who are looking to understand the origin of what everyone is doing and understand sort of where this culture is coming from, highly recommend reading that book. But also, the idea is a lot more relatable, where you say that there are a lot of problems with real life. And can you now create this digital parallel universe where actually you can, create an ideal sort of life, living environment with no constraints, right? So there are no physical constraints. There are no issue of, hey, I can't fly in real life, or I need to fly in a plane or have a jet behind me. But here, just the tap of a button, I can start flying. No concern about dying, because I can respawn at any point of time in these digital worlds. No concern about where I was born, what I was born as. I can actually live as a half human, half animal. So sort of all sorts of fantasies can be realized in these digital worlds. And the metaverse has thus become the gateway for this Web3, right? So we are really, talking about, as mobile apps was what was required to access the Web 2, really metaverse is going to be the same way, the way you access all of Web 3 itself, right? And metaverse, because of this focus on immersion, that's why you see Facebook or Microsoft or everyone, when they talk about the metaverse, they're really talking about this digital twin, this world where we are going to live in this virtual reality, right? Like the idea that is really being sold, at it has been shown in Ready Player One movie, is that we'll all become couch potatoes. We'll put on some VR headset, put on some bodysuits, and all we do is things inside this sort of virtual world, and the real world has stopped mattering to us. I feel that on this immersion point, the adoption is actually going to be very, very different, right? It'll be mobile first. We will still access most things through mobile devices. AR and VR are actually going to play a much smaller role in terms of use cases in this metaverse. And my reason is the following. One, the hardware cost of VR is still very high. VR technology has existed for a decade. It will improve, but we are still at least 5 years, if not more than a decade away from making it affordable for the masses, right? And more importantly, I think the experience of it, right? Like being tied to your house, wearing this headset on top of your head and moving around, the effort and the flexibility, there is no flexibility, and the effort also seems very high, right? Like imagine, like forget playing games, right? Like if I had to play PUBG or a game like Tekken or Street Fighter wearing a bodysuit, and if I have to really do the entire movements to actually get the effect inside the game, it'll not be for a lot of people, right? Like someone might do that as part of their exercise routine, like Nintendo Wii did with a lot of fitness apps, and it became popular for a while, but it started dying because people who really wanted to use it for fitness would go and do it in real life. And for others who were doing it for mental stimulation or just for having fun and entertainment, they found the effort part to be very taxing, right? And that's the problem which will happen with VR and AR also sort of going forward. It's great as a novelty to begin with, but for an ongoing activity, God has given us our fingers and hands as the most efficient tools. So these will remain the user interface or the interface as to how we will connect with the metaverse, for which the mobile devices are already the most efficient way to interact. And hence, in my view, at least the next adoption of metaverse, of Web3 will remain mobile first, particularly in countries like India. So for example, as zionverse and Totality, our focus of building is first Android apps, then iOS, and then for the web, rather than even consider console or AR and VR. The second part of Web3, which is very important, is obviously ownership. Now, obviously, this trend has also been in place for a while. We have seen people disgruntled with the fact that a lot of their data and privacy, even without their knowledge or without their permission, is actually sold out by a lot of large companies, right? There was an issue with WhatsApp as well, where people tried to go and move to Signal as an example, but because your network doesn't move with you, you could not get the same experience, right? So for example, I also moved to Signal, but what I found was only 25% of my network was on Signal. So for talking to 75% of the people, I still had to use WhatsApp. The 25% were only on Signal, but they were also on WhatsApp. So for convenience over time, it just so happened that I just kept having more interaction on WhatsApp. And even though I have this privacy security concern, I just out of convenience moved back to WhatsApp, right? Now, the beauty with ownership would be that since I'll be control of my data, companies now will be forced to create that experience around what I own, right? So this ownership, which is enabled through tokens, cryptocurrency, NFTs, one of the things that will happen is that I own my social network as an NFT, right? So NFTs, which are today, I'll talk about why people still view NFTs just as a digital art and how, in my opinion, they will transform. But think about owning all your entire social network that you have digitally. That's part of your NFT, right? And the WhatsApp or Web3 will ask your permission to access your social network, which you can give it. You can also give that permission to Signal at the same time, right? And everyone who has given permission that, okay, if Anshul is part of my social network, he can connect through me through any of the applications, then it doesn't matter whether I use WhatsApp and all of you use Signal or vice versa, because I am in control of my data and the companies can't stop other applications to access my social network. If I have given them permission, I would be able to continue to use WhatsApp and you all can continue to use Signal or vice versa, right? So now I'm not bound to the company. So rather than just saying that, hey, I own this NFT, truly the autonomy of what ecosystem I use and what permissions I give to the company, now that autonomy sits with me as a user and not with the company. Today, the experience seems very binary, right? WhatsApp has its rules. It says, if you don't agree to these rules, if you do not agree to the way we do it, then don't install it. No one is forcing you, right? So yes, that's okay, but there is no way for me to tailor the experience I want. Because if I agree to their rules, I have to agree to everything else that I don't like about them. Tomorrow, the experience will become very tailored. I could say that, for these messaging, I like the UI of this company, the way these guys are building an experience. I want it here. For storage and photo sharing, I want this experience. For something else, I want this, I want that, so on and so forth. Like Android mobile phone users would do, that they can really customize their entire interface, the amount of apps they want to download, and structure the whole thing. Unlike what you can do on iPhone, as an example, your true ownership in Web3 will come because of owning all that data, right? And blockchain is really making this possible now for you. So the way to think about the blockchain is that now for the first time, you are codifying these relationships, right? So for example, today when I buy a property, I have to go to a central authority and get that property registered. Because for me to tell someone that I truly own it, they go back to that central authority to verify it. Now, this verification, these records are stored by many people, and to assess whether you are an owner or not, what counts as an owner, what are the liabilities as an owner, is stored, is accessible via a number of people. And for paying a particular charge, which is your gas fee, you can actually get that verification done every time you do a transaction, right? So this blockchain has now truly enabled this decentralization, and why it is a very important part of the infrastructure of the Web3 and this ownership component itself. So, moving a little bit towards NFTs as well, NFTs so far have really been focused towards digital art, right? So what has started is that they have these 2D images. So like obviously there are these apes or these crypto punks, which look, they're all generative. They're created by an algorithm. They all look very weird. Some of them or a lot of them trade in the millions of dollars. It's really perplexing people that why is it that these 2D art actually has that much value? So let's go through that. Now, the reason any of these NFTs have value is because one thing we have to understand in terms of even ownership is that as humans, we are social animals, right? So we crave being in a society. That has actually been a reason for our survival against much stronger species like the Neanderthals. And because we are social animals and it's ingrained in us that we have to be social, social status is very important to us, which is what Facebook, TikTok, all of them have capitalized on in terms of number of followers, engagement, comments, etc. Right? And the other currency we really value is obviously monetary currency or money. Now, these NFTs are actually a representation of your social status. Why? This is the reason that they actually issue a fixed number, because if this community becomes aspirational, so what Board Ape BAYC did, which is Yuga Labs, they just raised 450 million at a $4 billion valuation, and they are a company which is just a little over a year in existence, right? What they did is that they said that here is a private community. All of you will come on a private Discord server, which you can only access if you are an NFT holder. And there you will discuss more about Web3 investment opportunities. And suddenly people started vying to become part of this community, right? The reason a lot of actors and singers and pop stars ended up buying BAYC is that it became really cool to be part of this community. And now you had a way to attain social status by spending money, right? Like remember in our grandparents' time, particularly, to become a reputed member of society, it took you many, many years, right? You had to do work for a long time, do a lot of public good, be great in your profession to become and climb to that status, right? If you see the generation today, thanks to social media and social network, a lot of people have been able to become influencers very quickly, which is why there is so much adoption by Gen Z and millennials to the social network, because now the social status, which took decades to build, can actually be built in much shorter time if you follow a certain process. And NFTs are actually giving you that in exchange for money. So rather than do the work, if you pay money, you can attain that social status, right? And people have money, or at least some people have a lot of money. So to attain social status, they are very willing to pay money. And this is the first time that social currency and monetary currency are now becoming interchangeable. So that's why these NFTs are valued at such high price point. What I think will be the future of the NFTs is that NFTs, the best explanation is that they are just a technology layer on any data that is personalized to you. Now that data could be an image, that data could be a video, that data could be literally a database of things. It could be your some AI you have trained. It could be your property purchase. It could be your investments, etc. So everything on Web3, which is personalized to you, will actually become a form of NFT. So NFT has almost unlimited use cases, right? So like I explained to you that your WhatsApp social network or your social network in general will be one NFT. Your search history will be another NFT. Your transaction history for finance will be another NFT. Your resume could be an NFT where you write your, your resume, your degree actually gets verified on that NFT by the college that you are attending. Whether you are a president of a particular society or not, that gets verified, so that companies don't need to do a lot of verification checks, which most companies like us do. So there is an actual end use and utility of such things as well, right? Your proof of work in terms of if you have done certain projects, if you have done certain, say technology projects or coding projects, those codes and projects and your GitHub repo, that it actually does belong to you and you have not copied it from some other place, also become part of your NFT and can get verified, and you can prove the origin of it as well. So there are a lot of utility benefits also that come rather than just the social status aspect of it, right? So again, what I'll say is these NFTs have unlimited use cases. The value of these NFTs will derive from the underlying itself. So it could be that, you are selling access to community. So Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a very well-known influencer in the US, he did an NFT called VFriends, where if you bought that NFT, it also gave you access to his conferences over the next 3 years, right? And that was quite interesting, because if your bet was that Gary Vaynerchuk is going to keep becoming more and more popular, and hence the ticket prices to go to his conference will keep increasing. It was almost a sure shot bet, if you believe in those two things, that buying the NFT would actually yield you good returns. So even if you were not a Gary Vaynerchuk fan, it ended up being a good investment, right? So again, like for you to know whether this NFT is a good investment or something that you should buy even as an end user, you look at its actual use case and what the underlying is. And if that underlying has good utility, good economics, that's where it becomes important. The other last thing that NFTs are also able to do is add a layer of abstraction, right? So something that apps like Robinhood are trying to do, where they are really abstracting, investments. Like if you see small case, they'll say, oh, rather than you looking at 10 stocks, the ease is that now you're betting on Indian consumers buying more, right? It's an abstraction to say that you, rather than looking at Hindustan Lever stock or Unilever stock or PNG or whatever else it is, you can now just directly go and bet on a trend. That abstraction is much easier to do in the NFT space than it is than what you are able to do in the underlying itself as well. And then the last piece, which I believe is the largest value add, is integrated economics, right? So I think I already explained that humans care about two currencies. One is a social currency and the other is a tangible currency, and both are equally important. Now, what we have seen in the Web 2, in the digital economy so far, is that we have seen businesses which capitalize on social currency. So you have your giants now, which are Twitter and Facebook or Meta or Alphabet, which is Google, which is really betting on a lot of this social currency aspect, where they find it tough to monetize, right? So the reason they went through advertising is that that was the best way for them to incorporate monetary currency without having to trouble you for the social currency, right? Imagine a use case like WhatsApp. Even today, even though WhatsApp is almost a utility for most people, like for me, it's a utility. I can't even imagine living my daily life without WhatsApp right now, right? Like even before WhatsApp came, I couldn't imagine that I ever needed that solution. Now I can't imagine living without it. They haven't been able to charge people $1 a year, which is what their plan has been for such a long time, right? So now they're doing WhatsApp Pay, figuring out other ancillary ways to actually monetize. So that's one part of the business which focus on social currency. The other part, which are like Amazon, Make My Trip, fintechs like Zerodha, etc. Their problem is that they are very good at dealing with money currency or monetary currency or tangible goods, etc. But they don't have social currency, and hence people don't spend as much time, right? So now you're seeing that every e-commerce company has games inside, right? They have video content inside. So like the likes of Ixigo have a lot of video content. Zomato has video content. Almost every e-commerce I came through, OTT I came through, have, they're like, oh, you have watched this video, for more rewards, go and play this game. The reason is that they're really trying hard to combine social currency with the monetary currency business that they have in place and what they're doing in terms of selling the goods and services as well. Web3, because it has ownership, because it is more immersive, it's at the perfect place to actually solve this, right? So as humans, since we strive to get both social currency and money currency, you can now create businesses where your social currency can actually be substituted for this money currency, right? And that's why the Bored Ape is a great example of it. Like I said, the value it derives is because now you could pay for social status, where people are not feeling it's weird, right? And the one way they did that is that they gave you status initially, based on chance. So it wasn't that, okay, if I am richer, then I can just go and buy it. If all of us bought Bored Ape, it was sold for the same price initially. And based on chance, I could get something which was more rare, or someone could get something which is less rare, right? So here they created sort of a fair system of giving you social hierarchy. And then obviously in the secondary market, the prices went up because as these communities became more aspirational, more people wanted to come in and purchase like the most rare sort of NFTs, because by definition, the rarer it is, the more social status you are getting because you are saying there's only one of that piece, right? And one of that piece really doesn't imply anything else in real life, except for the fact that that community would know that, oh, what this person owns is only one of that kind. It is really rare, and hence it's really, really valuable, right? And so going forward, we are also going to see a lot more of that integration, right? So something we are doing at zionverse is a lot of social activity that you do on Discord, Twitter, playing games, interacting with other people. In gaming, you actually get a lot of XP or experience points for this, right? So in a game, a lot of people will keep collecting experience points because it gives you levels, it gives you badges. So again, as a status, your status inside the game is improving, which is why a lot of gamers keep doing it. But on the other end, if you see real money gaming, right, which is Dream 11, MPL, actually our first business was also in real money gaming. There is a massive audience in places like India and Southeast Asia where people are actually just gaming for that money. That's exactly also the area where play to earn games like Axie Infinity came into the picture, right? So people there are really trying for the tangible rewards. Now the next set of what will happen in Web3 is this combination. So one thing we are launching to try this out, because this model is not yet solved for, is that we are giving people sanskar tokens. So the more you do game activity, since everything we are doing is around Indian mythology and culture, the more activity you do on Discord, Twitter, the more games you play, the more assets you create, the more 3D worlds and maps you create, the more sanskar tokens you get. More sanskar tokens you get, not only more social status we give you, but you can also use those sanskar tokens to buy things which are worth money, right? So if you have an NFT that gives you reward, you can upgrade that NFT to get more financial rewards, right? You are obviously able to get access to more private sales of tokens and NFTs that we will do. So we are obviously trying, and there will be a lot of Web3 systems that will now try to combine this. And for every business, so for everyone here, including Amdocs or everyone else who's listening, irrespective of the business you have, this integration of economics is going to become very, very important. Because the reality is, even if you are selling like chole bhature or tea today, having an engaged community is more important than ever. And the only way to engage and retain a community is to keep giving them social currency, but also to make it sustainable, which means that you will have to eventually give them some monetary benefits. Because after a while, people will love getting the social currency, but they will ask, what is it that this status means, right? Like, am I getting certain privileges? Am I able to monetize this privilege and get sort of, some monetary benefits out of it? So irrespective of the business you are in, whether that's e-commerce or cars or software, or a service-oriented business in any area, this integration of economics is going to remain a very, very important and key part to what people will be doing going forward. And Web3 is at the center of it. And I think this will be the largest value add that you get out of Web3, enabled by NFT tokens and the ownership and the immersion aspect that I spoke about before. One of the things that I think I get asked a lot, and I'll come to this to explain it, is about virtual lands. So like we covered, NFTs, places like Decentraland and Sandbox and many other metaverse systems in particular are monetizing by selling lands, right? So I get asked a lot, so I thought I'll cover this specifically, that, is there any value to these virtual lands? Like we talked about NFT as social status, what are these lands, right? Now, see, obviously, in real life, land has value because by nature, there is a limited amount of land, right? Then the amount of land which is habitable, i.e. in good weather conditions, neither extremely hot, so it's not a desert, it's neither a sand desert, or it's neither a frozen desert like a Arctic or Antarctica. The habitable land is much less. The land then where a network is created is much, much lesser, right? I.e. city land prices are much higher than somewhere out of the city, because a city already has an established infrastructure, established social network, and established network effects. Business is already taking place there. If you want to start a new business, employees, there is already a lot of employees that you can go and hire. There are a lot of people who might be willing to give you capital. There are a lot of consumers who are going to go and sell goods to. There's already established, transportation services, so on and so forth. And hence this network feeds on itself. And so because of this network effect, the value of land is higher, right? So the value of land isn't just derived from the fact that it is a limited supply. It comes from the fact that the network actually gets created, and hence the more valuable that network effect, the more valuable is that land, right? So what businesses and metaverses have done is they have given the same aspect to their virtual lands, right? If you are now going to have a place in Decentraland to do business, you can only do it. They have obviously done this synthetically. They did not need to do it, but this was the easiest way for them to monetize. They said that you are only able to set up a business inside Decentraland if you buy a virtual land for them. The same in Sandbox, that if you want to launch your own game and have your own place, you have to buy these virtual lands, right? So the prices of these virtual lands are also going to be proportionate to the network effect that gets created in these metaverses, right? So if you are a believer that Decentraland as a metaverse is only going to keep growing, all the land pieces are going to go up in value. Some will be more than others based on where they are placed, who are around you, like it happens in real life. But overall, the land prices will go up if you believe Decentraland keeps becoming more and more popular. So a lot of businesses have come and asked me, like, should we buy land, right? The other aspect to look at is your audience in that particular metaverse, right? So how many people from India regularly visit Decentraland? And if they do it, is it for novelty? Is it to understand that, what is happening? Or do they keep coming back because enough has been created on it? And if the answer is that enough has been created, there is a habit for them to come to a market. Now, this is like buying a commercial property in a market because you want to open a shop. And as an investor, if you believe that more shop owners will want to buy it, it is a good investment. If you do not believe in that network effect, then obviously the value of land will drop dramatically because there is no paucity, right? Like there theoretically can be infinite metaverses created, and theoretically every metaverse can have infinite amount of land, right? So unlike real world, where actually land is limited, barring some examples of Dubai where they have created islands out of sand in stuff where land didn't exist, in the metaverses there is an infinite supply. So that's why the prices shoot up a lot, because as the network becomes stronger, the prices are exponential. Now land is being sold for millions of dollars. We also have land mortgage companies, like virtual land mortgage companies, that if you want to buy a land on Decentraland, they'll give you a loan to actually buy it. And by the way, we have also land builders, right? So there are a few companies which are actually building a mansion for you on top of your sandbox, and they are selling each of these virtual mansions for, I think, 350 to 500,000 US dollars, right? So we are talking around 4 crore rupees is what they're selling these virtual mansions for, and they're building it for you. So it's a ready to move in virtual mansion for you, and they'll do that as a position itself. So if you obviously believe in this business, people who are interested in real estate, architecture, even interior design, this market is definitely taking off, and this ecosystem is definitely taking off, where people are actually literally doing what happens in real life in the virtual space also. And there is some merit to it, right? For metaverses, which will keep growing, these prices are going to keep increasing because obviously they have limited these lands artificially. And the last thing I would like to touch upon is obviously sort of what we are building at zionverse quickly. See, we are building a place for India where we could digitally hang out and where we feel that we actually belong, right? So one of the things we are very focused on is we want to give everyone a tool to be able to build a 3D place for themselves, build a 3D game for themselves. If they want to build your own digital house, build your own digital garden, have your own digital pets, your German Shepherd, which is digital, you can build your pet in a way, give it any behavior that you want. And all the content we are building is around Indian culture and mythology, because we feel that that has that emotional pull to make us feel that we belong to this virtual place rather than just having some 3D objects lying around. So that's really sort of our idea that we are doing. So with that, would be happy to answer sort of any questions that people have or dive more into specific areas that people have.
First of all, thanks for that amazing session, Anshul. It was really insightful and it was really amazing. And there is a lot of questions for your session by this crowd. I'll just read them out if you want.
Sure.
So one of the questions by Pratik is that, what do you think is difference between saving the data in Oracle and MongoDB database compared to the blockchain network? Also, if you can give some example use cases for private and permission blockchain networks.
Yeah. So saving your data on like any of these centralized databases is that whoever you give access to will have access to these DB, right? So if the question is, hey, what if I give access to anyone, right? Is that the same as a blockchain? It would be the same as a blockchain till the time you can then ensure that it's permissionless, right? By giving access to everybody, you have just said that this database can now be accessed by people who may or may not use it for the right purpose, come in and change that database as well, right? So then you will say, oh yeah, I'll have to build in certain verification methods, right? So for example, you'll say, okay, I can give it to everybody, but you would need to get verified by a few people. Then you will say like, okay, what are the verification rules, right? Then you will start incorporating verification rules. Quickly, you will realize that you have just created a centralized system where every
Okay.
rule you will build, everything that you will break, you will put a rule to it. Somebody will manage and make sure that that rule is followed. The rules will have to be changed at certain point of time as the ecosystem develops. Oh, who is forming those rules? You will say a committee will be forming those rules or a company will be forming those rules. You have quickly gone to what a centralized system is, right? And that's why centralized system came into being, like I said, because they are efficient, right? So for purely efficiency and low cost, we have moved to a centralized system, whether that's our governance, whether that's economic systems, whether that's companies, right? But overall, since people want more power, like even if you see startups, right? Like Amazon has this great saying that no, like this two pizza or one pizza theory, right? That no team should be large enough or shouldn't be larger than something where one pizza doesn't suffice their dinner. Now, the reason you have come down to such smaller teams, even in a large organization, is you want to give that ownership to people, because by giving that ownership, you're aligning the long-term benefits of the entire system and the individual, right? So an example of this decentralized system is Pinata Cloud, right? So Pinata Cloud. Now, Pinata Cloud is like AWS, but decentralized. Now, so what's the difference? The difference is, as Totality, if I put all my gaming assets on Pinata, there is a link, irrespective of whether Totality exists tomorrow or not. Till the time Pinata exists, this system will always exist, right? And anyone can now access that link without paying for it. But on the blockchain, what you have done is you have codified that permission and verification layer. So like I was telling you about the rules, proof of work, which Bitcoin and today Ethereum uses, they are basically saying that, hey, solve this cryptographic puzzle. If you solve it, we are now putting you in this circle of trust. You are somebody who is verified and you are verifying these transactions, right? Because you have done that proof of work.
Yes.
In proof of stake, obviously, they have done it through a different mechanism. They are saying that, you have to put certain amount of money at risk. If you're a good actor, we will give you a reward on that. If you're a bad actor, we'll confiscate your money. So tomorrow you will have different ways to verify it, right? There'll be proof of gaming, proof of attendance, proof of customer service. There could be many different blockchains where the proof of what you do to become part of this verified community is different proofs that is the right use case for whatever business is being built. It's a long answer, but I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think it surely helps. There is one more question by Akash, and it's a very interesting question. It's don't you think all these technologies you explained are useful for relatively small audience, like who work in IT and some other people? How will it make a difference in lives of people who are less connected to technology?
Okay, so yes, this is a natural progression. So like there'll be a couple of things, right? So obviously the first angle is this is not just limited to people who are in IT, right? Like everyone who's a smartphone user will become a user of Web3, right? So see,
Yes,
only when Web3 came did people suddenly say that, oh, there was a Web2 also. For the larger people, Web 2.0 or the fact that there was a Web 1.0 and a Web 2.0 was not even existing, this demarcation, right? But the transition to using mobile apps, right? Like App Store really came in 2008, which is just 14 years ago. But it now almost seems like it's impossible to imagine lives without using apps, right? So the
correct.
smartphone users will naturally evolve to Web3 users. The other users who may not be very entrenched in the digital ecosystem, I actually think that there'll be a lot of businesses which will be offline to on-chain, right? So they'll skip the entire digital part. It is not a progression and they'll directly become on-chain, right? Let me give you an example. So for the longest time, the government has, one reason the government said that they want to open Jan Dhan accounts, etc., was they wanted to give direct benefits to people, right? Because they knew that the centralized chain that they were going through before, there was a lot of leakage. We know the problems that are happening with Jan Dhan, that leakage is reduced, but it is still there. This is where technologies like blockchain come and it's perfect, right? Why is like if the government builds a private blockchain, of course it can happen, but then the verification, the openness and transparency to the public will be less because you asked me something about private and public as well. If they do this on a public blockchain where anyone can verify that, oh, they are saying that we disbursed 30,000 crore, 30,000 crore was given to, 50 crore people, right? Everyone can
Yes,
now verify it because it's on chain. The verification will be on chain. This does not mean, by the way, that scam risk or fake risk goes to zero, but now it becomes more and more difficult, right? The more difficult you make it, the more this scam reduces, the more transparency we are inducing, right? So something as large as direct benefit scheme is actually a perfect use case for being implemented on a public blockchain, in my view.
okay. There are some more questions, if you may.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I'll just connect two questions over here. So one question is by Bhargav and one is by Anshul Jain. So uh, their questions are, how exactly are NFTs unique, and if one wants to build an NFT for himself, how can they do so by using publication, collection data, what else?
So see, there'll be two parts. I'll answer this question. One will
Yeah.
be what NFTs actually stand for, which is that they are just the technology layer on anything that's personalized. And why personalized? Because if you're just using data, which is common to me and others, NFT is also a token, right? It's just a different standard to your fungible tokens. So it's just a different token standard. And if you're just dealing with common data, then you're just going to end up making it's better and more efficient to make fungible tokens. But if you're using data that is more personalized and unique, that's where NFTs come into picture. So that's one aspect. How to create them? I guess if the answer is that, for a lot of people, we are, because NFTs got promoted a lot by digital art, the first thing that people think is still, I'm just going to create a digital art and collectibles NFT, right? I feel very strongly that, look, collectibles market is a great use case. It's a collectible markets in real life is something that is important. It will expand through NFTs. It is expanding. However, that's a very limited use case of NFT. So if you want to do collectibles, there are tons of, like, even on OpenSea today, it's very easy for you to go and put your PNGs or JPEGs or even GIFs, etc., to create your NFTs on OpenSea. It's a very easy process. You can have a look at YouTube and do it. even doing your own NFT contracts, whether that's a ERC 721 or ERC 1155, which are two, standards of creating NFTs and two probably most used standards. They're not the only two standards. They are relatively easy to look at because you will get a lot of GitHub repository in terms of smart contracts to start off with. I think the key to think about NFTs is more what is the benefit you're giving, right? Like I said, value of an NFT or virtual land or any of these is proportionate to some factor of the community. Now, if you believe Metcalfe's law, it will be square of the number of connections, so square of the number of people in a very basic rule of thumb. But either way, it's proportionate to some measure of your community, right? So what you need to really focus on is why is the community going to be with you, right? Like what is the value you are giving on a long-term basis? How are you acquiring them? How are you engaging them? How are you retaining them? And how eventually will you monetize that? So it's no more different than the businesses you form where it's very user-centric, but rather than fulfilling a pain point, now you are actually looking at a community involvement, right? So unfortunately, like, or at least my view is that, NFTs are best used for happiness businesses rather than pain businesses, right? They can be used for pain businesses, but because they're unique, it's more with happiness business, right? Whether it's clothing, whether it's different food items that you use, whether it's gaming, whether it's financial investments. Like I said, financial investments could become tailored specifically to your need, which portfolio managers do, and they all will become NFTs and be given and sold to you there, because also the abstraction will become easy. So that's the thing you have to think about is communities benefit. How do you acquire, retain, and engage that community?
Okay. There is some other questions as well. So it is by someone anonymous, I guess. How does it help the various health issues that technology is already causing, like depression, anxiety, poor eyesight, etc.? They are reports we are exponentially causing it, right? Do we feel that somehow NFT metaverse is going to help improve happiness index globally? I mean, this is a very interesting question.
Yeah. So see, like with every technology, there are going to be both sides of the coin, right? Now, like I talked about, that Web3 is immersion, ownership, and integrated economics. With immersion, you are unfortunately going to get an exaggeration of both, right? So if things that you enjoy are more immersive, they look more real, they feel more happy. Things which are bad will also become more immersive and will become worse, right? So like, I don't want to present this only as great, like cyberbullying will be worse in the metaverse, right? For sure, it's a big issue. Because we are doing decentralization, there two issues arise from it, right? See, people love the fact that they're owners. They hate the fact that they need to do more work of ownership. They hate the fact that, oh, why do I need to pay gas fee, right? Now, like I said, centralization, see, like we are moving towards some cryptocurrencies, layer 2 solutions, likes of Solana, etc. And the easiest way for them to fix it right now in general is that they are doing more and more centralized activity, but people feel that it's blockchain, so it's all on chain, it doesn't matter, right? But it's a obviously it's a pragmatic approach, because it has to become a balance of cost we pay versus the benefit we get, right? But true ownership will require higher cost and will also require higher effort, because you are now the owner directly. You can't rely or trust a centralized body. There is none, right? In a utopian world, there is no centralized body to whom you go to and say, hey, is this a good investment? So for people who are in this space, DYOR, which is do your own research, is probably the most quoted thing, that don't rely on others. You will have to do more work because you are now the owner, right? The other aspect is fraud is increasing and scam is increasing because there is no verified authority, right? Like what people love is they're like, oh, I want to be an owner, but somebody should be in the middle figuring out why, like there should be no scam. Someone else needs to protect me. Well, if that someone else comes and protects you, they will also impose rules. If they impose rules, by definition, we are moving to centralization and not decentralization. So I'm just saying that, unfortunately, whether it's autocracy or democracy or decentralization, it has its own pros and cons, right?
Correct.
And we have to pick the pro and con. There are definitely going to be negative effects, but overall, I feel giving more autonomy, giving more freedom for people to express will become a net positive, right? Like for everything we may say about Facebook and that doesn't mean that there isn't cyberbullying. That doesn't mean that some people have gotten addicted to social media and games. Net, I still feel that these are forces that have net added benefit to all our lives rather than a net negative contributor.
Correct. Yeah. We have some questions from our audience from LinkedIn, if you would like to hear them. So
Sure.
there's a two-part question over here is how can you secure a blockchain network and how long do you think adoption will take by continent, North and South America, Europe and Asia?
So can you secure a blockchain network really depends on whatever the proof is, right? So generally, this is the other reason why these tokens sort of rise in value also is like, obviously today, if you had to do whatever you wanted to on the Bitcoin network, you would need to own 51% of it, right? And that's by the way, also a debate that's taking place for people who are following it, where large VCs, large investors own a hefty chunk of these tokens, right? So in a manner, if one party or through other entities own 51% of Bitcoin, they can do whatever they want on that particular network, right? So that is one issue, which is also why when we are looking at decentralization, amount of distribution of what people will keep holding over a longer period of time becomes very important, because otherwise security, the fact that governance is really democratized, all gets compromised, right? Because if I am 51% owner in Bitcoin, theoretically, I can actually start distributing coins to myself. I can start rejecting transactions, so on and so forth. So that's the way security is going to go. Of course, you can also create a blockchain where you could incorporate rules which are more centralized in a manner, right? And to be fair, that's probably what's also happening, right? Like everything we are seeing happening in Ethereum and in a lot of other sort of Web3 projects is that there is still truly a lot more centralization than decentralization. And part of the reason is that out of the entire supply of coins, circulating coins are very limited. So 51+% ownership is with still a very few hands, which is why they are able to take all the decisions in a centralized basis that they are. And see, this is natural. Like, I'm not going to say that this is something bad. This is a new area. All of us together are trying to figure out where to go. So there will be a lot of missteps, which is just natural in any new thing. And everyone is trying to do their best to navigate this sort of complex process. The second question, which is about adoption, see, to me, actually, there are two paths, right? If I had to talk about metaverse, the worse your real life, the worse your inequality in real life, in income, wealth, the more the adoption of metaverse will come, right? Because by nature, like, why is it that social network became so popular in India and expanded like crazy, right? Because you have to imagine, like, if you are, and so the one reason TikTok took off is because of their algorithmic feed. You now give an equal opportunity for everybody to become a star, right? Like, unlike Instagram, unlike YouTube, which does have some sort of wealth effects, right? In the sense that if you're already big, your chances of remaining big are much higher. So the wealth inequality is only increasing on places there. Whereas something like TikTok with their algorithm, they have tried to minimize it. Like, I wouldn't say that they have, like, no one can cure it because of the natural network effect. And so similarly, decentralization and metaverse, I'm saying a very philosophical point, it's a great equalizer, right? Which means that economies where wealth inequality is high, which are particularly areas like Southeast Asia, India, Latin America, there you will see a lot more adoption, which is why you see play to earn games, not just because of earning money, but also social status. The adoption of things like TikTok, etc., boomed there, right? And so you will see metaverse booming there a lot more. And then countries which are really rich, like the US, They are growing because, A, they have legality, they have a regulatory framework. They obviously, companies like Meta already realize that this is the future. So they are already heavily investing because they have the money, they have the foresight to see that this is the area to make a lot more money. So my view is that for both reasons of money, where money already exists, and for the other reason where money is less and inequality is
Yes,
higher, you will see adoption on both fronts, and
correct.
very rapidly.
So the final question I think we have from the crowd for this session is this is these are a social currency, right? And how will this social currency be monetized in this real currency environment?
So this is something, see, NFTs are not necessarily just social currency. Like, you can create investments out of them also. But in general, this is still the puzzle to be solved, right? Like I mentioned, I would say that someone who can solve the puzzle of really communicating social currency with tangible currency and making it fungible in that manner, like tradable, where the community adopts it, is already sitting at a business which will be worth probably trillions to start with, right? Because whether that's e-commerce, edtech, finance, the one problem that, say, e-commerce, edtech, fintech have in particular is retention, right? Like, their monetization is solved for, their acquisition is solved for, they have less engagement, they have less retention. And in both areas, Web3 and Metaverse is actually much better, which is why you are seeing Flipkart has a Metaverse department. A lot of fintechs are investing in there. Make My Trip did their NFT launch. They all know that this is the area where, if they can solve for this social currency, monetary currency, they solve for retention. And if they make it more immersive, they solve for engagement. So that itself alone is, one business could be multiple trillions if you're able to solve that particular problem. Um,
Uh, Sorry going over the time, but there's one last question. Could you suggest any resources to learn more about blockchains and Web 3.0 overall? Like,
I'll what I can do is, I have a list. Should I just put that here somewhere?
yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, you can put the list over here.
Okay, I'm putting that over here, and then we can do that. Great, it's gone to the hosts and panelists chat. Oh, I should
Okay.
just do everyone. Okay, I've done everyone. Great, I think I really have to jump off now for my next call,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. Thank you, Anshul. Thanks a lot for explaining and like clearing all our doubts regarding NFTs, metaverse, everything. It's been an amazing session. Thanks to this crowd for being so curious about this new thing. And thanks again. Thanks everyone for joining this session. Just a quick reminder, please join in tomorrow's final session for that will be the exclusive panel discussion at 11:30 a.m. You have an interesting topic about entrepreneurship mindset inside organization, moderated by the one of the seasoned product innovators, Mr. Rahul Kulkarni. Thank you all.